Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Tennant Nicholson. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Wasabi Publicity and the co-founder of PitchRate.com. And we are doing a series that's very special. It's called Real PR in Real Time. And for the 6-part series, we've been taking participants through a look behind the scenes of PR, like what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis inside my campaigns that I do here at Wasabi Publicity. And so sometimes people always say, well, what is publicity? What do you do? And how do I actually get, mentioned in the news myself? And so this is what we've been talking about. And this is the last of the series of 6. And what we have in store for today is I actually have some media placements for our featured author. His name is Clayton Moore. We're so very excited. I'm actually going to be preparing him for those media placements. So in today's call, I'm actually going to go through, well, what was actually generated from the pitch that we did? And how do you prepare for print, broadcast, TV, magazines? It's all so confusing. I know. It's really not. It's very simple. And we're going to actually make it very simple. But before we get started, I know that everybody has their own lives, right? It's not, we want Clayton to actually succeed, of course, but we also have all the participants, and that's you included. And you're working alongside the 21-day PR action guide that I wrote with my business partner, Drew Gerber. And before we get into it, we're going to do a quick breakout session. But before that, let's do a quick round robin for our key players on the call. So we're going to introduce Clayton last. And then, but first, we're going to start with Stephanie Chandler, who is the reason for the series. And while Stephanie's talking, I want to remind everybody to look at your name. And remember, this is a safe place to mess up in Zoom and all those other things. So figure out how to make sure your name reflects what you want for your own publicity. With that, Stephanie, your name looks beautiful. You take it away. Tell us about yourself and what we're doing here with you.
Hey, I fumbled with that name thing because my married name is different. And when I've been on school calls, I've fumbled and had it wrong. So we all do it, by the way. So I'm Stephanie Chandler. I'm Clayton's book publisher through Authority Publishing, but I also run the Nonfiction Authors Association and Writers Conference. And I'm so grateful to Michelle and Drew when I reached out and said, we have this amazing story. Any chance you guys would help us out with publicity? And they took this on and they're sharing it all with all of you. And I know it's been wildly popular, but the biggest exciting news today is Clayton's book is officially live on Amazon as of this morning. So I posted a link in the chat. We would be so grateful for your support and helping him get a little bit of traction right out of the gate. He hasn't even announced it. He hasn't had time to announce it to his family and friends. I just texted him 30 minutes ago to let him know it was live. So what a perfect time on our final Zoom chat to get to share that with you all. And we really appreciate you. This has been so much fun.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for Stephanie. That it's so great, right? It's so exciting to be able to actually participate in the in birthing your baby, Clayton, So let's meet Clayton. Clayton, go ahead and let's unmute him and meet him for those of you who are just now joining us.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Good. You are, we're going to talk about microphones and everything, but I think everybody can hear Clayton, right? Yeah. You're coming in strong, Clayton.
Okay.
So, but that's exciting about your book. Tell us about how you're feeling. We'll get into all that other stuff, all that gobbledygook. Don't worry about it. So how are you feeling today about your book?
Oh boy. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of crazy right now. I'm trying to be cool about everything, but it's exciting. I mean, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So don't worry, David. We'll figure out. One of the things that we have to talk about inside media preparation is checking little things like your name and your volume and that kind of thing. So Clayton, while we introduce Kristen, I want you to change there's a space in your name. So when you originally set up your Zoom settings, this is for everybody. So when you originally secured your free Zoom account, the way that you introduced your name inside settings is the way that it'll always propagate, right? If mine will always propagate Michelle Tennant Nicholson because that's what's in my settings. So if you have a space like Clayton does between the C and the L, and I don't mean to point fingers at Clayton, but he's put himself in the hot seat for the benefit of all of us, and so perfect. You want to, so eventually, Clayton, you want to go back to the settings in your Zoom account and correct that so that you don't have to do that every single time.
Okay.
I mean, and there you can also then customize it with anything else, any creds, letters, whatever you want to put there, right? Retired, whatever.
Okay.
The other thing is that people are asking you to actually lower your,
Right.
you can't hear it, but we can hear it. But do you know, like when, like my dad, may he rest in peace, but he wouldn't always wear his hearing aid, and then he'd yell at everybody when his hearing aids weren't in. That's how you're coming across right now, and I know you don't want to be aggressive like that. So there's no way that you know that unless you actually practice with us.
Yeah. Is this any better?
No, it is not, but it's awesome that you're trying. All right, play with that, and then let's mute Clayton for right now. He's going to play with his volumes, and when we do the formal media training, I'll get into all that. Okay, and now let's meet Kristen. So let's unmute Clayton, and then unmute Kristen, mute Clayton.
There we go. That was funny, Michelle. Everybody needs somebody in their life that's just going to tell it like it is. So most of you guys have met me before. I'm Kristen. I'm a developmental editor and a book collaborator, and I helped Clayton with his book. And I just want to piggyback on what Stephanie said, especially since it's the last one. And I haven't run this by Stephanie or Michelle so they can slap my wrist later. But, you know, if you guys have enjoyed this and learned from it, I really think, you know, go and buy the book. It will help Stephanie. It definitely is going to help Michelle because as she pitches Clayton and they go to his Amazon page, there's just going to be that social proof. And if you guys would write a review, that would be awesome. And I mean, it benefits Clayton too. And he's really put himself out there for all of us. I told him yesterday that today was going to be like shoving him into the deep end of the pool while we all just watch him like flail around. So he's really put himself out there. So that's my little shameless plug for all these wonderful people who have made this thing happen. And I appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you so much, Kristen. No, of course we're not going to slap your wrist for that one. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing here, right? And then also to talk about like, well, what's next, right? Because in many ways, the journey has just begun. So we're going to talk about next steps, and just so that I can tell you what's ahead of us in this next hour, I'll put it in the chat. So we're going to refresh your memory on the differences between earned, paid, and owned media. So you get a gold star when we break out into our breakout sessions, if you remember what that is. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give you what I do in my media training. Clients purchase media training with us, right? Media preparation. I'm going to give you a quick 1-2 on what you do there. Here's the formula, right? I love formulas. So you establish your credibility. I'm going to say with them, and that means what's in it for me, right? That's the viewer, the listener, the reader. And then the last thing is your call to action. So before you do any interview, and I still do it, I will actually say to my team or my business partner or my husband, whatever the context is, and I'll say, I need to do my sound bites, establish like the credibility that makes sense in this interview, what's in it for the listener, and then my call to action, which is something that we also do for these calls, right? So we actually look at, well, what type of action do we want you all to take? And as Kristen said, actually in supporting Clayton's social media is one thing. For sure, a good hashtag is good cop, black cop. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for putting that in the chat too. And right now, we're going to do a breakout session. I want you to talk about the differences between earned, paid, and owned. I want you to share any type of media coverage that you've generated. There's probably something that you've generated. And then I also want you to share that in the large group when we come back from the breakout session and put that in the chat as well. So we're just going to take 4 to 5 minutes to just get present to each other, talk about what's ahead of us and what's been happening for you. And then we'll come back together and media train Clayton. People are coming back. I'll start the media training. Let's talk about technology first. Okay. And then I'll get into like our prize questions when everybody gets back. But Clayton, I was just testing it out. Let me see if I can actually share with you. So if quick 1-2, and my recommendation, a client actually asked me in the past few hours, are you going to train me how to do Skype and how to do Zoom and how to do that? No, that's something that is an internal job, you all. Okay, that's like saying, are you going to train me how to speak Spanish, right? So my recommendation is that you just go to YouTube, Vimeo, Google, whatever search term you like. There's so many opinions about big tech today. I'm just going to say you choose a search engine you love and you type in how to use Zoom, how to use Skype, and then you watch 5 videos. Also, if you're taking care of chickens in your backyard, that's a good way to figure out the things that you don't know. My husband and I have figured that out in the last decade. Like, we're terrified of what we're seeing with our chickens, and we can't figure out why they're doing what they're doing. We go to YouTube. Why are chickens pecking each other? Why are chickens losing their feathers? Why are chickens doing this or that? And YouTube is like our new encyclopedia, right? Back in the day when I was a kid, I'd have to go to my living room and Dad had bought a little encyclopedia set, right? He was so proud that he had bought his kids an encyclopedia set. It was so cute. That's what we had. That's all we had, right? Or the library. But look, we got magic fingers on our smartphones. So, and I know that I have to do it for myself. Okay. I've been doing PR for 31 years. I've seen it transition from typewriters to Twitter. Let me tell you, there are still platforms that come up day to day. You never know which platform is going to stick. But if I have to meet a professional, a media professional, and like Zencaster is one that's come up that I personally am not using, I will get on and I will do all their free demos. Because usually they'll promote how to use their system. Like a project manager, there's like 12 different project management systems we have to use for different campaigns based on the client's preferences. And they always, like Basecamp is one. They'll have a tutorial section. Okay. So that's an inside job. Meanwhile, I'm going to give you a quick 1-2 on Zoom. In the bottom left-hand corner where the microphones, right now it should be muted except for me and Clayton. There's a little caret, little up arrow. If you click on, everybody can click on that and you're going to see select a microphone, select a speaker, test speaker and microphone. Now everybody test your speaker and microphone while we're talking, because I can't hear you do that. You can do that while you're on a call with somebody. Okay. So you can actually just test that out privately to make sure that you'll be able to be heard. And then the other place that you can do at the very bottom, it'll say audio settings. And if you click on audio settings, and so I'm just going to show you what I see. This is what you should be seeing. I'll share my screen. This is where you're going to be testing. You can change volume. See, you can make it a little, you're probably going to hear my, this is what I hear you at, Clayton, right? So if you didn't adjust your speaker and I wanted you to be more silent on my end, I could bring you down some, right? I could also bring me down some. Okay. I'm not able to adjust this because I have a special speaker. See, if I use same as system or the webcam, it'd be different, but I'm actually using a system that comes with this microphone. So we all have to do this with technology. It's a learning curve every single time. So this is a new microphone for me. And when it came, I wanted to throw it out the window. Okay. Don't take your technology and throw it at the TV. Don't step on it. Don't throw it out the window just because you are unwilling to grow your brain some. Okay. As you get older, you're less and less willing to learn new things, and it's always healthy for your brain, right? So like I can remind myself, I'm like, what did you learn in grad school? You learned that learning a new language, learning a new skill is healthy as you age. Okay. So I hunkered down and what did I do? First thing, I looked at my YouTube videos, and then whatever name brand this was. I don't even remember what name brand it was, but I looked at all the videos of like people, people reviewing this particular style of microphone. Then I came across a YouTube video because I couldn't get the volume right. I would test it out with Hannah, or I test it out with my other team members. And I'm like, can you hear me now? And they're like, no, like what's happened with Clayton? There was one video where a guy had a similar problem. He downloaded an app. I figured it out on my computer, and then I had to adjust and actually change the default settings of this microphone. I know. Everybody's like, I know some of you are like, what did she just say? Oh my God, I'm not doing that. Okay. If you're not going to do it, that's fine. Just know that you're not going to do the podcast game. Okay. If you're going to play the podcast game, which is the thing today, this is what it looks like. Okay. Adjusting your background, your clarity. Look, what's the funny thing is I did this mistake one time. Let me share this. You see what this is? Everybody have a piece of cloth in their building somewhere for glasses? This is for glasses. Check this out. You want to actually clean your webcam. Yes. One time I was on TV and I saw it later and I was like, why am I so blurry? I had a thumbprint right there. Okay. So you definitely want to change that stuff. Okay. So technology, you get it? So first of all, how am I hearing, sounding? Any questions about that, Clayton? Because then we're going to move on to your makeup.
No, you sound great.
Okay, good. You also sound great. Fantastic.
Adjustment.
So make sure you're buddied up, because this is the last series. So you want to be able to have a practice session partner. Okay. And that's what the association, that's also a good resource for the association, right? Now, makeup. Should you wear makeup, Clayton?
Well, I guess that sounds like for a guy to say that. We're going to say no. However,
right.
I know that when you're on camera, they do powder you up and for the glare and everything else. And so you meant makeup.
Exactly. So for men, women, please put a little makeup on, even for Zoom, right? You'll see a lot of videos of me online where I don't wear makeup. It is a difference. It just gives that little extra polish, right? If I'm just showing up for a personal thing, I'm not going to wear any makeup. But if I'm actually presenting myself in a professional way, I'm not going to have PJs on, and I'm going to have my hair done and my makeup on and my jewelry done, all that stuff, because it just forms an impression. Okay. What's in the background? Do I have bags? Right? No. Now, Clayton, you're at your house. I think it's fine. The only thing that I would do with this setup, because it's a little different than your other setup, is I would raise the level of whatever system you've got. Okay. When you have your family members walking about, we've all seen those videos where the kids walk in the middle of the interview and that kind of thing. So you just want to control your environment some. For me, it's on my dog. I've actually made that mistake with you all, where the dog just busts in, those kinds of things. You want to put your, turn off technology, put a little sign on your door at the front. I'm not available for an hour. So, but what are we actually, so your system, or what's in the background, let's put Helen Edwards on the hot seat for a second. Hi, Helen. She's like, oh no, I didn't know Michelle was going to call me out. I just want to show you what Helen has in the background. Helen did one of our special interview series with Thrive Global, our 5 and Thrive. They're being edited and placed on everything for the next few weeks, by the way. So at our Wasabi Publicity YouTube channel. Helen, can you unmute yourself? Oh, good. Helen gets to practice. Okay, good. Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Helen, talk to us about your background.
Okay. This is shameless self-promotion. I put it together in.
Good for you.
I learned how to, somebody told me I should promote my book. So every time I go on Zoom, I have a picture of the book. I have a picture of one of my father-in-law's ships, which of course I'm mostly in front of. And then I have in the top left corner, I have a drawing that he was required to do when he was in the Navy of the ship he was serving on. So it just makes me feel like a real author. When
You
I
are a
have
real
this-
author. Yeah.
I know, but this is about my 5th career. So
I love it. Good.
So yeah, it just, somebody mentioned it to me. I don't remember if it was on one of your courses or where it was, but it's pretty easy. I did it in Photoshop. I'm sure you can do it in just about anything. And yeah, of course, every time Zoom updates, I have to set it in preferences again, but yeah, so what?
That's right.
And I just think it's better than somebody having to look at my kitchen or my office or whatever, because they're not always tidy.
Well, fine. And we all have our houses, right? Where they're lived in. But my aunt
Yes.
always called it lived in. We don't messy, whatever. That's a judgment call, because some of us some of us aren't comfortable unless it's completely 100% spick and span. That's my mom. And then there's my husband, who just he likes stacks of things around the house, which, I'm sort of in the middle of those two things. That doesn't matter about promoting your book. This is what the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about is, how are you presenting? Thank you, Helen. Thank you for being a player too and letting me put you on the hot seat.
Oh, no problem.
And
Okay.
by the way, that's happened to me this week. I've been participating in the National Publicity Summit since 2006. And as such, I'm part of, 100 other information officers, authors and whatnot. And same thing that just happened to Helen happened to me Wednesday, where the moderator was like, "Where's Michelle? Michelle, talk about online press kits." And immediately what went through my head was, oh my God, thank God I did my makeup, right? Because that was not the day we were meeting with the press. That was our off day, right? Where we're just kind of hanging out and listening to him. So when you're on Zoom, think about it like you're going out to the mall or something locally. And how would you feel if you saw your ex-lover? That's how I always go. If I saw an ex-lover and I looked this way, would I be happy or upset about that? And that's how I measure how I look. Just telling you I'm sure, Clayton, you don't do that, but I'm just telling you my humanness. Okay. Now, makeup. Yes. Men, at the very minimal, some powder, some chapstick, because men tend to have get nervous and then you have a whole interview where you're making these wonderful sound bites and you're doing this the whole time. Okay. Now, a little bit of powder in the nose, and then women, you don't need a lot of makeup. If you're in studio, that's a whole other ball game, but you want to come what they call street ready if you ever are in studio. I have this really fabulous example of let's call her a high maintenance client. We're gonna be professional about it and just call her a little high maintenance. You all know those friends, okay? And she would not do it unless they provided makeup. Unless they had a makeup person there, she was not going to do the interview. Okay, so I worked with the producer. It was the producer was like, okay, guess what? CNN put forth the makeup artist. It was one of those boxes that you used to look into a satellite interview. And so it was a remote location with this satellite box. The makeup artist was local to the author, not to New York. And the makeup artist had the car break down or something happened. And so there my author was, hair not done, no makeup. And at the very last minute, they're like, you're going to be on in 3, 2. She's like, she shows up, what comes out of her mouth is fantastic, perfect sound bites. But it looks like she stuck her finger in an outlet and her hair is a mess and there's no makeup and just red lips. The producer back in New York blamed her, not the fact that his makeup artist didn't show up. You see how the press works? So You've got to be ready. You got to make their job easier. Okay. You got to know you don't make them wait on technology. You don't make them wait on what you look like. You don't make easy peasy breezy. No high maintenance, nothing. How can I refill your glass of iced tea? Oh, wonderful, press person, right? I used to wait tables in college. And so I think in terms of how can I anticipate you need your water refilled or whatever. Okay. So that's technology, makeup. I do like a little bit of red lips, ladies. Okay. Pink is awesome if you're wearing pink, but let's get your lips out there a little bit because you're talking. Okay. The lighting is important. So if the lighting that's natural to your office is not good, then you need to pop in some light and play around with that. Okay. Look at yourself, take some screenshots. If you're blurry, just play on YouTube and see what happens. Do some Facebook video lives just with your friends to see what happens. And then if it's blurry or whatever, then that's on you. Clean that stuff up. What about what do you say? So when we talked about owned, paid, and earned, by the way, here's your answer. Let's see if some of you remembered, some of you didn't. So owned media is everything that you own. You have 100% control over that. Paid media is like advertising, and you pay a venue to distribute your message. That's not what we're talking about when we say publicity. When we say public relations, there's an old saying, you pay for advertising, you pray for PR, because you're asking to be put in somebody else's paid or owned assets, right? It's earned. You're earning the right to be inside their editorial, or you're earning the right to be in their news cycle. So what we're talking about is somebody who's giving me the opportunity, and it's just, I'm giving you my time. I'm an expert or an author, and I'm gracing you with my presence, and I'm volunteering my time for you. And then they're going to thank you with hopefully a mention, but they might not, right? They just see this sort of like, oh, great, you're showing up with a potato salad at the community picnic, right? They're not obligated to promote anything. Now, podcasters today or bloggers, influencers are more apt to let you plug something, but you've got to do your plugging without promoting, right? Sort of like our Helen, right? She controls what's behind her. So she's got it. She's got Dutchie's Diaries mentioned, whether they mention it or not. You want me? You got to get my background. You want me? You got to see this book, right? Okay. So Clayton, let's say that, you're about to go on, and you don't know, maybe 1,000, maybe 1,000,000 people watching this podcast. What do you want them to know about you? What are 3 things you want them to be left with? Now, everybody write this down for yourself. By the way, I heard that some people already have podcasts and interviews and whatnot. So share that in the chat room so that you can be acknowledged by others. Wonderful job, David Petrove, calling him out. So you have to do this on your paper right now. So on your newspaper, like in your little notebook, while we're working with Clayton, you do it here. So what are 3 things, Clayton, that you want to say about you, your life, and your book?
Are you saying my background or just some things I want to say verbally?
All of it, right? This gets to the heart of your messaging. And let me give you a hint, right? I know I want everybody to ask themselves for themselves, like before each interview, what does this audience, what do I want them to be left with after the interview so that you control and drive that interview? Now, you can have a look-see, Clayton, about what we promised, because the pitch that we sent is sort of like a promissory note on what you're going to talk about, right? Mm-hmm. So we send this, and then we send these interview questions, right? And they're probably going to just use this 1-pager, and they're just going to print this off in front of them, and they're going to actually then read, suggested intro, right? Racial profiling, police brutality, the Black Lives Matter movement, defunding the police. Clayton Moore, author of Good Cop, Black Cop, Guilty Until Proven Innocent, says inner bias is at the heart of each of these pressing social issues. Welcome to the program, Clayton. And then you say hello. Then the person's going to take one of these 3 things, and then he's going to ask you, or she's going to ask you, hi, Clayton, what is inner bias and how can we identify and acknowledge it in ourselves? And then you're going to have that conversation, right?
Right.
Or they might be like, oh, you know what? I read this, I read the book, and they're going to ask you anything that comes to mind. So for us to have an expectation that they're going to use the materials that we send to them to prep is an expectation that's a failing situation. I want you, no matter what you're asked about your book from here for the rest of time, or at least until you change your talking points, what are the 3 things you want them to know about you, your book, your platform, you?
Well, no, the experience I went through.
Okay. I'm going to call that story, your backstory. Okay. What
Okay.
else? What kind of like, what's the call to action here? What do we want to talk about? Like,
What
what do you want people to do after they hear the podcast?
Yeah, I want them to look inside themselves and, kind of take a look at themselves and say, okay, is this happening? Is it real? Is it something I can do to help change?
Okay, reflection. I'm going to say self-reflection. Okay, one more.
And basically my purpose, my things I want to accomplish, things I want to change, my goal and
Well, what is that? What is your goal, your purpose, all that? Tell me what that is. This is where I now, like in my media training, I listen to clients and go, really at the core of, what do you want this audience to do?
I want them to be aware in my book that, there are problems, there are biases, and that officers of color are treated different than Caucasian officers. I want them to know that it's real and it happens, and that there needs to be more of training. I think with more training, diversity training, I think you at least can, if you acknowledge that there's an issue, then have the training, go forward, then you can come to understanding that maybe we can accomplish some things, some change, create some change in how we do things.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to put the word change. So story, self-reflection, change, or would that help you remember what you want to say? So what I'm getting at is 3 words. We can change these, but this is a start, right?
Okay.
Okay. So we want 3 words to reflect what you want to say. And then in this case, we want them to buy your book. Mm-hmm. Right? So, and that's fine. You might have a course, you might have fundraising ask, you might not have any of that. And you may want people just to sit down with their loved one at night and have a conversation, right? You get to make up the call to action. Good cop, black cop.com. So I would just make a piece of paper like this, and then I would tape it under my webcam, right under there. Hi, I'm Clayton Moore, and I'm going to tell you about my story. My story is going to have a lot of backstory, blah, 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 blah. Then I'm going to ask you to self-reflect. Point, statistic, whatever I want to say about that, something from the book, blah, blah, blah. It's a point to really change. Whatever point I want to make about change, point. If I'm in a 45-minute situation, I've got lots to say about change. If I'm in a 4-minute situation, I probably only have about 45 seconds to talk about change. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, you can reach me at goodcopblackcop.com. And that's it. See how easy that was?
Yeah.
Hard. Okay. Yeah. Now, the other thing I want everybody to do is look at who the people are, right? So your first podcaster her name is Charissa, and her podcast is You Inspired. Okay. So you've already been heavy at work at writing for authority. There's a gentleman named Yitzi Weiner who has a whole series on social impact heroes, right? So he interviewed Clayton Moore. He did that Q&A style. So then you ask a question, you answer, and so forth. It's all print. So it could be your interview goes an email way, right? And then you have plenty of time to proof it and work with Kristen on polishing it and that kind of thing, right? But then there's the podcast, which is live, right? So then you have, so yours, it looks like it's going to be April 6th. Okay, so I'm pulling out her information, because what you want to do before any type of podcast, you want to look at who they are. So this is her. Okay, this is the podcaster. She likes to talk about unlock your true abundance. You just want to kind of look and see like what's she about, right? So then she has a backstory of after she's helping people heal. So then you're like, oh, good. She's going to be talking about that. You're going to read about her and what and who she is, right? You might even sign up for her stuff just to kind of like just explore who she is just a bit. You might actually look at her other podcasts and listen to them and see what they're all about, right? So you can see that they average about 40 minutes in general. Some are a little shorter, right? 28. This one's an hour, right? Probably depends on, so she's a little free flowing in her conversation. And then you'll get an idea of her style. And what I always tell people is to think of a tennis match, ping, pong, right? And so so when you start the interview, Clayton, she's going to be more relaxed and just kind of like middle. But sometimes it's going to be a morning shock jock interview, and he's waking people up. With us is Clayton Moore. Welcome, Clayton. You have 45 seconds to tell us about whatever you promised you'd tell us about. And then you're like, you got to be up. Hi, thanks for having me. Hi, I'm a retired police officer. There's a lot of terrible things that happened to me. It's all in my book. Good cop, black cop, guilty until proven innocent. Happy to be here. We all need to change. Wake up. Not only for your day today, but also for life, because stuff is happening to us. Whatever, right? I got a story about it. I'm asking you to self-reflect. Please change society. Read all about it. That's why I'm passionate about it and wrote a book, Good Cop, Black Cop. Then other times, it might be an evening radio show, and they're actually getting ready for people to go to bed. And you don't want to come on that strong. It's more relaxing and soothing. Let's just really self-reflect on our lives. And then you're going to come in on that energy. Okay? So you're going to be able to get that information and look all that up, have plenty of time to look at that before. And then she'll put it up on the website. If you I'm going to put her, she's a sweetheart. Okay? I'm going to show you where Clayton's interview will be, okay, in the future. I want to also say that while this is the last in the series right now, I'm going to update you at storytellertothemedia.com, which is my blog. Okay. And I know that we're cooking up what's next for March, and my team is not quite ready about because we've been doing a series, right? For a while now, especially to support you with this book. So we'll continue, but I think this was really valuable to have something behind the scenes. And so what that actually looks like, I'm still trying to figure that out. And I would love your feedback on what you all would like to see coming up in the next series. So you can email that to Hannah at wasabipublicity.com. Hannah, put the blog URL, storytellertothemedia.com. That's a vanity, what we call a vanity URL. That's something that I can easily say in interviews. but it goes back to Wasabi Publicity, specifically my blog page. Okay. And so when you're doing interviews, you also want it just to be really easy for people to find the call to action. Did you notice that I just gave everybody a call to action? Okay, that's what you want. And it feels like conversation. Okay. Now, I'm also going to give you an article that I wrote in PR Week that was promote without promoting. So I call promotion like kryptonite. And so I really believe in this, because how do you promote without over promoting? Because nobody likes somebody who feels like a braggart. But you have, the whole reason why you're giving of your time is so that you're selling a book or you're doing something, right? So I have this little article that I'm going to give you. I also want you to notice that I mentioned something called EmpireAvenue.com. That year that I wrote that, it was up and coming, but guess what? Nobody's ever heard of it, right? So you never know. Like we also heard at the time, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, those stood the test of time. Have you heard of Empire Avenue? Right? So that year it was kind of cool, but now not. So that's the article there. I'm just going to summarize it. Be the expert, educate, and tie in the news. There's a whole section in the book about that. And there's also a whole section about the workbook about preparing. But let's talk specifically about Clayton for you. Educate. Okay. So first, you're the expert because this is your life experience.
Okay.
Okay. Plus you have the experience of being a police officer and all that has. Then you got to educate people. And that's about that change piece. Have them self-reflect and then change, right? And if you've got 4 minutes, that's a quick thing. If you've got 40 minutes, like you're going to have with Teresa, you have a little more time to kind of play and get relaxed with that. Okay. Now, tie in the news. Guess what's happening? Bonus points on, if you don't look, this is just if you know off the top of your head, what is happening today about Black Lives Matter? And I literally just saw it while I was eating lunch before this call. So if you know, so raise your digital hand if you know the answer to that. Nobody? Come on. Really? Super gold stars if you know this one. Hannah, do you know? Clayton, do you know?
No.
Oh, sweet. I love being the first one on news. Okay. Let me tell you. Okay. So here's what's breaking right now is that in Georgia, yeah, Julia, right? I know it's like when someone gets news scoops before me, I'm always like, dang it. And so it feels good to actually have one. Like I don't feel like I'm catching up because I've had a really busy week. In Georgia, they're turning the voter, there's a bill that's been proposed. And it primarily affects the ability to vote on a Sunday. Now, I should let Clayton actually say why that's important, right? But I'm just going to tell you. Black people like to vote on Sunday. Clayton, do you want to say more about this?
Well, I don't know. We're in church on Sunday a lot. I know the churches are probably, it's one place where you can get a large amount of Black people together in one location at a time. And
That's right.
Control.
Yeah. So what happened in history was that the way that you'd get the Black vote out is that the churches would mobilize on Sunday. So that's what's happening today. So, you know, Candy's saying, you know, souls to the polls was a whole campaign last year. Yeah. I mean, so if we look at like breaking news of the day, that's what's happening. Then of course we have the whole Black Lives Matter. And then separate from all of that, we just have Clayton's story. Okay. Now, what if they ask you about, here, I'm just going to mock a little bit with you, Clayton. Okay. I'm going to pretend to be Teresa, you know, podcasting. And so I've introduced you, we're chatting, whatever. And let's say that you didn't know about whatever she asked about, right?
Okay.
Hey, Clayton, you know, I heard today that they're actually not going to let Black churches vote anymore. How do you feel about that?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure. You got me stumped on that.
Come on, you got your answers right here. Choose one of them. Segue
Okay.
to one of these.
Well, let me reflect on how answer your question one more time. Give it to me one more
Okay.
time. Okay.
Hey, Clayton, thanks so much. Your story is amazing. So thank you for being here. I can't wait to learn more. Today, it was really interesting. I heard that they're trying to suppress the Black vote in Georgia by not allowing churches to vote, to bring loads of people after church to go vote. How do you feel about that? And you're
Well,
in your head, you're like, oh my God, I haven't read that story. Like, who cares? Because you still have your answers right here. What are you going to
right.
talk about?
Well, that's the part where we need to talk about change, you know, and talk about the diversity within Black people in the country and some of the things that we went through, our struggles and everything. But in my book, I speak on a certain issue about change, and we can kind of, you know, I would say
Perfect.
something
Okay.
along those lines.
And then whatever you're going to say about that. Okay, you guys see your
Right.
play with your reactions right now. Learn something else on Zoom. You can do all kinds of reactions. So when you like what he's doing, I want to see the board light up. Okay? So you can also do heart, whatever you want, okay? And then it'll just disappear. Okay, another question. And I'm just going to also pull some of the questions from your press kit and the answer that we had before, okay? Clayton, oh my gosh, did you hear about those new German shepherds? Do you what do you think police were going to use those new German shepherds for?
Okay. Well, I think there's a couple things they may use them for. If I have to go back in, my experience, some of the things we would have used them for was basically crowd control, you know. But mainly, I said the history we have with dogs and society and with Black people is not a positive. And you would think that they would use the dogs more as an intimidation for minorities.
Good. Clayton, you won your battle against the racial injustice. What do you want others to understand about that?
Well, my story was a long story, and although I won my battle, but against racial injustice, I just want them to understand that things are real in America here, and that yes, I was I had the opportunity to take my case and win it, but it's not about me. It's about what's going on throughout the entire country, and I'm just a small portion of what's going on. And if you can understand a lot of things that I went through, do you understand that this is happening? It is a big problem, and it's something that we need to have dialogue about and take care of, make some changes.
Now, I want you to practice. This is great, Clayton. And most of what this is how it works, right? You're going to figure out what you're going to say. And then no matter what you're asked, you're going to answer the question, but you're going to use that real estate time. Like we call it like what you only have so many minutes. And so it's very important that whatever you say goes your way because you're not paying and you don't control this message. All that you control is what comes out of your mouth. Now, what about getting your website in there? That's always a tricky one. If they don't ask you at the end, they usually say, how can people reach you? But let's see if you can't use this method. So it goes like something like this. Say, well, that's a really good question, Charissa. And I'm so passionate about this project. That's why I wrote my book. You can read more about it at goodcopblackcop.com. But let me just say this about these two, what you've asked me, blah, blah, blah. Do you see how the answer actually, it puts the clothing of your plug, it gives a way for, it's like a service. You can find out more information about this. You can do more blah, blah, blah. You're doing a service. You're not saying, well, that's a good question. And that's why I wrote the book. You should just read the book at goodcopblackcop.com. And you've seen authors do that. And you're like, ew, right? You don't want to get on the passion train. We want people to get on your passion train and join your tribe and be with you and be part of your community. Okay. So what questions do you have about everything we just talked about? That is a basic media training. You know, what you wear, your hair, makeup, what you say, a little bit of a mock. What's present for you? You feel ready for the podcast, or you're like, oh, I'm not ready? Tell me.
Do you ever have 3 different words for different, say, media outlets?
Yes. So I tend to have like my macro 3 words that I'm always, so for Wasabi, that's like I always want to talk about press kits, right? Because our claim to fame is technology, right? I always want to talk about stories. I also have a story one, right? And then I also typically distinguish between earned, paid, and owned. Okay, like that, I call that just what is PR, right? But if I'm in the middle of a conversation with a podcaster like I was recently, and his whole thing was about communication, right? So I have to then look at specifically for his audience, what would make a difference. And so for that, I really relied on my master's degree and pulled in some different 3-pointers there. But that was like, it was also an hour long, so I could, craft. I have my macro points and then like my little macro points. But you really want to keep it simple so you don't have to memorize and you can just be with people. Like being with me is better than reading something. But
Right.
people get so nervous, they just want to get it right, so they want to read something. And some people will give you grace for that. We do it with politicians all the time. We let them read things just because they want to get it, So there's a little bit of that that's okay. But a lot of the podcasters today just want you to kind of be neutral. TV, they just want you nice and succinct. Radio, they want you entertaining. If it's print in any capacity, they just want you to educate or inspire. Okay? And the only way to get better is to practice.
Right.
Right? So I've had plenty of really high level, experts that is like they're perfect for national TV. When they do regional TV, sometimes it's bad, and that's okay. Because you got to get there. It's part of the process. It's about the journey, not the destination. And I always invite people just to be gentle with yourself as you're learning. Right? Okay. Questions? We have like a few minutes. We can probably take a couple of questions about what's next. I'm terrified. Help me. I'm losing my group. What's happening next? That kind of stuff. Yep. Katie Bradland. You can use your digital hand or your physical hand.
I just wanted a lot of conversations going on in the chat on the side in regard to some people saying, well, if you keep kind of going back to your point, that's like politicians. And my point that I wrote in there was, they're just such a visible example. And unfortunately, politics is seen as so negative right now. But Kristen made a really great point saying, the more prepared you are, you can still speak conversationally, but you're going to be much more calm and confident in the way that you're speaking because you know what you're going to be talking about. And versus some people, like when I'm dealing with our athletes, they don't want to do any sort of media training because they feel like then they'll sound too scripted. But the reality is, you don't need to be scripted. You need to know what you're going to answer based on doing some homework ahead of time and being prepared. And then even if you get a question you're not sure about, by having those 3 points that you wrote down, Michelle, just like Clayton did, he kind of went, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so here's my story. So he just needs to get more comfortable with that, and he'll seamlessly be able to answer a question and sound really confident, even if he doesn't really know a specific answer.
Yeah. What Katie's bringing up is really important. And there's there's a whole other webinar series we could do just on this. The difference is authenticity and inauthenticity. The politicians that you loathe and that like recorded thing that they're saying is because you know that they're trying to dodge the question. That's a completely different thing that we're talking about. That's like more like crisis management PR. And I was watching I think it was Kamala Harris. Was it Kamala Harris or Ted Cruz? I can't remember, but I looked at my husband and I started laughing and I said, wow, she really stuck to her points. Good job. Like as a publicist, if I have a client and it is a crisis management situation, you better stick with your talking points or you're going to be sued. You know what I'm saying? That is not what we're talking about with you all. Okay. That is a whole other, yeah, you just want to be prepared, professional, and have your time be valuable. Victoria and Gary Buckman had their hand, and then Kristen.
Well, I was just going to talk about, I am lucky. Sales runs through my blood. So I teach sales, and I took sales and I broke it down to SALES. And the first S in sales is come from service. Make a friend first, become from service. And when you come from service, one of the things you want to remember is you're the expert on what you're talking about. So even if you get caught up in a question, you are the expert. They aren't going to know if you went in a wrong direction. So, and then ask questions and listen. A is ask questions. L is listen. And then E is excavate. And what do I have that I can give them? Elevate them. What do I have that lifts them up? And then the last S in sales is share. There's no selling in sales. And basically, doing an interview is no different than being in sales. So I always tell my people, if you come from service and you just give what you already know, because you're the expert on you and whatever your topic is, it kind of allows you to be so much more natural, comfortable, authentic, all the different things that you were talking about, transparent. And don't be afraid to make a mistake. Be human.
Victoria, do you have that trademarked?
I need to get it trademarked. I wrote myself a letter and left it in the envelope and then mailed it to myself, but I don't know if
Do you have a book on it?
It's halfway done.
Do you have a white paper on it?
No.
Do you have an article on it?
Yeah, I have many articles on it.
Okay, that's hot. And I just put it in, you guys, if you use that credit, because you came up with that, right, Victoria?
It was a download that I got at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was in a hotel room.
But just make sure nobody else is using that acronym, and you should immediately write that book and get that out in the world. That's wonderful.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to end this whole series.
On my list,
come on, that's like
on my list to do after promoting my husband's book first.
Okay, well, that's fine, Gary. Yeah, help Gary, but meanwhile, get your own book done, because that's amazing. Yeah, and so, by the way, you can talk to Stephanie Chandler. She's got an association that will help you with that, the release of that book.
Stephanie Chandler is fabulous. She's the one. She came to me in an intuition also. She led me to Kristen. Kristen led me to Wasabi. Yeah. Listen
really
to
wonderful.
Your inner guidance. That's my tip for the day.
Yeah, let's all do our little reactions. I see people are doing their reactions. That's so great. Yeah, I love it. All right, Kristen, and then we'll do our final remarks with you.
I just have a practical suggestion from my time at Toastmasters as the president of a club and doing a lot of public speaking. The thing that helped me the most was to practice in front of a mirror, because what you'll find is that if you can't look yourself in the eye, that tells you that you have absolutely no confidence in not in what you're saying necessarily. You might really be passionate about what you're saying, but it'll demonstrate how confident you are about the way that you're communicating that thing. And you'll also be able to have a visual cue about what's working in what you're saying and what's not. You'll see patterns as you just do it again and again. And I keep a stopwatch and I will time myself for each segment. And you'll start to realize like what you write down on paper doesn't come out the same way when you're speaking. So you'll have to start revising what you've written on paper that you think is going to work, because in an audio type of a format, it doesn't. And that is the thing that even still, before I do a presentation, I practice in a mirror out loud. A lot of people don't want to do it, but it's obvious. Your preparation shows. So
It does show. Thank you, Kristen. Now, I want to take it one step beyond what Kristen was saying, is create your own YouTube channel and start to practice doing live YouTube videos. Who cares if nobody sees them? You can see yourself. You'll learn a lot from that process of just playing around with. It's free. There's no, you know, you can play with your phone. You can record yourself on your phone. You can record yourself. So I like it, adding not only the mirror, but a level of technology, because that's how we communicate as authors, information officers, publicists, communicators in today's technical world, especially in, you know, we're post-pandemic. We'll be post-pandemic soon. I keep having the hope, right? Now, I want to also say that, Clayton, what you don't know is that there's a magazine. Like, I really want you to hear what Kristen just said, because you're also going to be featured in Speaker Magazine. They're so taken with your book and who you are. I talked to them yesterday and they're like, ooh, I like that even for the April issue. So that's coming pretty quickly. Okay. So the other thing is that it takes time. So then what we're going to be doing for Clayton, we've done one pitch, but we're going to do multiple pitches now. So in many ways, the job has just begun. We're going to be taking these news and story ideas, then we're going to draw them out into an actual pitch. And so we'll be each month actually then sending these pitches out on him. Right? So this is where that actually comes to bear when you have created you're like, well, what do I give them? You know, you might even just give them the one page of news and story ideas. So it's, remember, somebody has to, we should ask Victoria to do a whole webinar on sales, right? But sometimes they have to see you 7 times before they actually book you. You know, what we're talking about in this sales process is booking. And the process of establishing your credibility, who you are as an officer, who you are with a personal experience, talking about what's in it for me. When I mean me, I mean viewer, listener, reader, the person out there. You start using the word you instead of me, you. And then the call to action, that's just your basic sales formula, right, Victoria? So that's what we're applying to the interview process too, so that your visits convert to you have visitors come to your website, and then it converts to book sales, that's a whole other ball of wax and art form inside your owned assets. I loved being with you all this 6-part series. We talked about creating your why, you know, creating your press kit, your press materials, your media list and who you're reaching out to, your pitches, and then how to prepare for an actual media interview. I hope that this has been valuable for everybody. And just because our time is ending in this particular series doesn't mean that our relationship is ending. And I hope to hear from everybody's success stories so that we can share it with everybody. I will certainly be blogging about everybody's communications to me, especially like when Clayton gets another situation, like another placement or something like that. I will be doing a blog entry about it at storytellertothemedia.com. So if you're wondering, how do you connect again with all of us? That will be your first place. Thank you. I love you all. Good luck with everything.